podcast, an inside look at California politics and the state legislature. I'm your host, Assemblyman Josh Hoover, and very excited to have someone on today who I've been trying to get on for a while, Senator Scott Wilk from Senate District 21. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Thanks, Josh, for having me. Long time waiting for that invite, but I finally got it.
I know, right? Yeah, we've been talking about it. Like, I know we ran into each other a couple times, and I'm even more honored because I know you're not even going to be around much longer. This is your final session.
This is my final session. This is my final podcast. And before we get started, I just want to say how much I've been impressed with you, and actually a number of freshman class in both parties. And I'm leaving, but I still have hope for California because of people like you, and you've done a fantastic job, and I'm confident they're going to send you back in November.
I appreciate that. It means a lot, and it is kind of weird losing some of the people we're losing because I feel like we're losing a lot of institutional knowledge, and
So by that you mean old?
I didn't say old. I don't think you're old, right? Like, I don't know.
I'm on Medicare, so I think I'm old.
I love it. It is going to be weird, though. I mean, the turnover we're going to see, right? Last cycle, there's obviously a big turnover, and then this cycle, there'll be a pretty big turnover.
I think it's going to mitigate it, though, because a lot of those people who left 2 years ago were actually scheduled to leave this coming cycle.
That's true.
So I think it's going to lessen the blow. I was, looking back when we were looking forward, I'm like, it sound like Kamala Harris. I was really concerned about the loss of institutional knowledge, but I think we actually benefited by a lot of people leaving early. So I think we're gonna be fine.
It'll be good. It does. I will say that, like, the new term limits, I prefer much more to the old term limits in the assembly, at least particularly, just because you used to get 6 years in the assembly. So then what? You figure it out and you're done practically. So,
yeah, it's year 3 that you really. Okay, I got this.
Yeah. So, I think this gives people a little more time to figure things out. So tell us a little bit about your district before we dive in here. Love to hear about where you're coming from.
Sure. So it's the 21st Senate District. So it's northern LA and San Bernardino counties. So basically it's from Magic Mountain up to the Kern County LA line, and then 2 hours and 45 minutes to the east. Working class district, 40% Latino, 13.5% African American. Interesting enough, more than half of my constituents, and I have 1,060,000, are on Medi-Cal. In terms of industry, Santa Clarita, film and television. I don't think there's hardly any truck commercial that's not filmed in my district. Yeah. Rock videos, movies. So I've worked a lot on the film and tax credit and things for the industry. Up in the Antelope Valley, and to a lesser extent the Victor Valley, we've got aerospace.
Awesome.
Allegedly in Palmdale at Plant 42 at Lockheed Skunk Works is a UFO that they're reverse engineering to figure out that technology. And of course, the space shuttle was built there, the SR-71. Now we're building the next generation B-21 bomber. And then everybody knows they got it, but it's top secret. The first generation supersonic jet is going to be built by Lockheed again up in Palmdale. So a lot going on in my district.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really incredible.
Yeah.
So have you seen the UFO?
I have not. So I don't have a security clearance. I used to work for the so my former boss was chair of Armed Services Committee, and we'd go up there for briefings, and then at some point I had to get kicked out of the room.
Funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, it's true. And I didn't think I could pass a security clearance, so I never tried to get one.
That's fair. So is Magic Mountain in your district?
No, it's not. It's right there on the border. I just use that as a point of reference.
Landmark,
it was in my, I got the northbound of the I-5, but not the south. It was in my assembly district. And
that's funny.
Of course, I raised my family in the Santa Clarita Valley, and it's a rite of passage for teenagers to work at Magic Mountain.
To work there.
Oh yeah. They have 4,500 employees during the summer.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Magic Mountain. I loved Magic Mountain as a kid. We've got season passes to Vallejo, so it's
not the same.
Discovery Kingdom. So not quite the same.
I can hook you up. if you're down that way.
Yeah, not quite the same, but it's all good. My kids still love it. I had my youngest, he's 10, and he broke all of his roller coaster fears over the summer. So it was pretty cool to watch.
That is.
Just like that
Oh,
first,
yeah.
because the last time we had gone there, it was like, I'm not riding anything. And then he finally went, and he's like, I think I'm going to do it. And then he loved it. It was great. So we'll have to get down to Magic Mountain at some point and try that one out too.
You let me know.
So how you feeling last session? Like, how you feeling about, well, I guess the session itself, but also just what's it like being in your final run here in August?
Yeah, I'm still processing. Like, people go, "Are you going to miss it?" And like, I'm not a sentimental person. I just kind of plug away. So I don't know. Did I accomplish everything I wanted to accomplish? I mean, obviously not. Things went much differently than I was hoping for. But at the bottom line, you're just one person.
Yeah.
And you just do the best you can in terms of representing your district and voting correctly. And so I'm going to leave. Yeah. I'm going to leave with no regret. But
that's good.
I'm happy to leave. I'm actually fortunate that I love my wife and I love my dogs. And I got my third grandchild, our first granddaughter, coming along. So I'm pretty excited about going back home and leading a more regular life, so I can shed some of these lbs that I've gained up here.
Hey, you know what? I mean, you really do, though. Like, not you, just you, the general you. I mean, I was just thinking about that like last week, because it's like, man, I gotta stop eating, and it's just every night there's a new dinner or something.
Yeah, and then of course at the end, at the end of session, you're just bored. And like you're in the you're in the members lounge grazing,
snacking,
and we're all in there snacking. And go, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And so this time I'm going, should I not do it because I'm going to be civilian, or just be all in?
Go all in.
Go all in
on your it's your last one. You gotta do it, and you paid for those snacks.
Yeah,
so
that I did.
So 12 years, right?
Yeah.
12 years in the legislature. So what are some of one or two or whatever your like biggest takeaways in terms of like things you're gonna remember?
Well,
or advice. If you have
so
advice.
So how about some advice? So one of the things that has been frustrating to me is that the legislature is supposed to be a co-equal branch of government, and we have completely capitulated to the executive. We'll have bills that get no votes in both houses, gets vetoed, and we don't do anything about it. And I think we should pick out a couple and do that. And then the other thing, we need to really take seriously our role on oversight, because that's one of our constitutional responsibilities. And I don't think we do a very good job on that. So, case example, the worst vote I cast in my 12 years is granting executive powers to Newsom during the pandemic. Look, at the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know what we were dealing with. So that's fine. But we had no safeguards in there for us to come back.
Yep.
In the beginning, we didn't know what we were dealing with. He's doing what he's doing. I don't fault him for the beginning, but when the data started coming in, it was pretty clear that his strategy was the wrong strategy. And maybe it's me, but I really felt like he was competing with the governor of New York to get media play so he could run for president.
Well, he's doing daily press conferences.
Yeah.
I mean, it was wild.
And we let him run amok, and he did horrible damage to the economy and small businesses, and to young people, not being in school, not having senior prom, not playing football, and it was needless. So I think once he's gone, and like all my colleagues that were there at the time are gone, that we ought to have a select committee, probably a joint committee, to really look at how we handle pandemics, because we were doing it all on the fly. And I think we're going to have more rather than less pandemics in the future because of globalization. I think it's really important that we kind of have some protocols in place. Yeah. But we got to be once removed, because there's a lot of strong opinions from a lot of people, and I think we need to have a more reflective view. So I hope that's something that you guys take on after my generation's gone.
I think there was a bill, I don't know if it was Gallagher or who it was, but it would essentially, or maybe it was Kiley before he left, I can't remember, but it would have essentially required, the legislature to reauthorize a state of emergency, every 30 days, essentially during a pandemic.
That's fine, but I think we need to have a more whole, because actually, Schwarzenegger, this is one thing he was actually proactive on when it started the process, and then Great Recession hit and all that, and it just never came to fruition. But,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I just think I agree. I think the legislature really just stepped aside during the pandemic, and even when it had opportunities to step up and open schools, for example, I think they did pass a bill pretty far into the pandemic on that topic, but it was a little too late in my opinion. And really you had during the pandemic, I was actually on a school board, right? And so I was kind of in the trenches fighting to reopen our schools in my community. And it was just like we were just kind of left hanging. We were left out to dry because we were getting no support from the state in terms of reopening. And our essentially all the county infrastructure and all the it's crazy to even think about now, but all the tiers, the color tiers, and all the stuff was determining what we were able to do.
And let's talk about the color tier. Okay, because here's what it needed to be: red, yellow, green. Not magenta, teal. I mean, it's just
there were a lot of colors.
No, he just complicates it. Yeah. Like, I think everybody understands the red, yellow, green. 3 done.
Yeah,
but
well,
you're giving me PTSD right now.
I know. I'm getting it myself now. I got to stop. But it was funny because there was a certain point in time where the schools in like our part of the county were in a completely different technical tier,
right,
COVID wise, than the rest of the county. But it was all by county. Right, so our whole county had to be, right,
one
color.
We had the same issue because Santa Clarita and the Antelope Valley way different than Los Angeles.
Of course,
but we were, and we didn't have the issues that they had down there, and still got stuck with it.
And it's like, well, if this is about COVID rates, then we're meeting that.
Yeah.
Like, so let us open. You know, it was just crazy. No, I think that's good. We actually got a question from a listener on why, and I don't know if this happened in your time here, but why when the governor vetoes a bill that the supermajority supported, that the vast majority of legislators supported, why don't they ever override the governor on that? Why don't they ever override the veto? And it's a question I've had too, so I don't know if you had any thoughts on it.
Well, I'm not.
Have you seen it happen?
No, the last time anybody's been overridden was in '78, Governor Brown.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
But I know before Brown left, and I'll give him credit. Bob Hertzberg, who was majority floor leader in the Senate, said we need to send a message to the next governor, and we need to override. Just even if we do a couple of these, to let them know that we can do it. And there was just no appetite for it.
Interesting.
Just no appetite for it.
So that was under. Jerry Brown, second time?
Yeah, Brown. So Brown's last year here.
Wow.
Hertzberg and I were both
like that shot across the bow approach. You know, you just kind of it's like, hey, we're willing to do it. But if you never do it and you're not willing to do it, everyone knows you're not willing to do it. It kind of it kind of gives the governor free reign to do whatever he wants.
And what if he had free reign?
Then that's what we've seen, right? Yeah. That's what we've seen. Interesting. No, I think that's really good advice, and I think I would love to see this legislature, especially when the new members come in, and then obviously we're going to get a new governor at some point. Who knows who that's going to be at this point? There's like 42 candidates right now or something, but I just think that it would be good for the new legislature to say like, hey, we're gonna change some things in that regard. We're gonna actually be a co-equal branch. We're not going to cede our authority to someone. And the other people we shouldn't be ceding authority to are the regulators.
I agree.
Like, I mean, you look at all of these bills that we've written that say like, okay, this is the framework. And then we tell CARB to go figure it out and, figure out all the details. And that's really bad for our businesses and our and
I agree, but that was all done by design, so we didn't have to take a responsibility for it, and that was before even I got in. So
and then you blame the agency.
Yeah, then you blame the agencies. But I had wanted to introduce a bill, and Leg Council said it was wrong that if an agency came out with a regulation that the legislature thought did not reflect
that's smart.
The intent of the legislation, that we could veto it. And they claimed it was unconstitutional. I don't know why it'd be unconstitutional, but I'm not going to get out of the first committee anyway. So it's like, I'm not going to waste time on fight. I mean, when you're a Republican, you kind of have to work on stuff that you can.
It would be interesting, though, if they had to get legislative approval
Yeah.
for certain
Yeah.
regulations. I think that would make a ton of sense. Because they're just like, I mean, not just CAR, but just there's a bunch of different agencies that just get away with everything, and then it's really hard to rein in once they
Oh,
go
yeah.
down that road, right? So,
Well, I mean, I've just a situation. So all of a sudden, Fish and Wildlife decides that the Joshua tree, the
yeah,
western Joshua tree, is now an endangered species when there's at least 9 million of them in the desert,
wow,
and they just sprung it. And so we've
that's
worked with them, and
incredible.
it's not as bad as it was. No, this is a state.
That's
Yeah,
incredible. Yeah,
state, and it's like it's if they had their way, it would completely shut down commerce. And
yeah,
if you look at California, if you want housing in Southern California, the only place you can build it really is in my district.
yep,
And they
yep.
want to shut it down.
So you can't build there because of
Well,
the trees and
there's been
stuff.
some modification to it,
got
but it drives up the price.
Of course,
And
yeah.
to be honest with you, I think it was a money grab.
Hmm.
Because they'll let you cut them down as long as you pay
You
them.
just got to pay them.
You got to pay them. It's like,
That's fascinating.
yeah.
Wow, that's a bummer. No, I've been down to that area. It's pretty cool. The Joshua trees are cool. But yeah, that's really tough. So we're gonna shift gears here. We'll jump in. So we just kind of go through some of the stories of the week, talk about some of the ongoings that's going on in the legislature right now. Obviously, really busy time. Big story this week, or last week, I should say, was the Appropriations Suspense Hearing. How did you do, by the way? I should ask you. Did you have any bills you were waiting to hear on?
Well, so I'm termed out, and when you termed out, people leave. And so I didn't do that heavy of a legislative package
yeah.
because of the fact I didn't want to be there
Yeah.
at the end. And it's like me and my chief of staff, Eileen, and everybody else is gone.
No
And
staff
so
left.
honestly, I would say more conservative policy measures, particularly as it relates to parental rights.
Okay.
So I knew that. And again, the whole house of origin thing. So
Yeah.
you can most of the time can get stuff out of your house
Your
because you're
own
friends
house,
with
yeah.
everybody. It's like, and they know that they're going to end up killing it in the other appropriations
Yeah.
committee. That's exactly what happened to me. So the only bill I got out, which is a good bill, relates to there's a new technique to how to spay and neuter dogs and cats.
Okay.
And it's a big crisis going on now in animal shelters. There's just been
Oh yeah.
overwhelmed. I have one animal shelter in my district. The euthanasia rate is 55%.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So anyway, this would add it to the curriculum. The students going through and allow people to come back and do continuing education. And with this technique, you could go up to Apple Valley and you could spend the day there, and it's worth everybody's time. It's worth
Interesting.
So we'll see. And so that's coming to your floor.
Yeah, great. Yeah. I'll keep an eye out for it.
And everything else was all parental rights stuff, which I knew was not gonna, and transparency stuff. Like no.
Hey, it's worth a shot though on your way out.
Well,
right?
but it's also you got to keep the dialogue
Yeah.
going.
Got to keep the dialogue going.
And then the
for
other
sure.
thing that's happened to me a lot is I lose bills, and then a couple years later, Democrat introduces my bill, and then it gets passed.
So that's already happened to me twice.
Yeah.
Kind of. Once in each session, essentially, where I had a bill and everyone's like, that's a good bill. I like that bill you have there. And then it's someone else's bill.
Yeah, look at
it's
when
funny.
you're in the minority, it's got to be about policy.
Yeah,
right.
for sure.
So I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, but I had two Assembly Democratic offices, call, hey, can he, floor jockey the bill? And then I look at the bill, yes, my bill, happy to do it.
It is funny how that works. And, that being said, at the end of the day, the one when it happened in, I guess, 2023 last year, it ultimately ended up getting through and getting signed by the governor. So it was still kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. To see, it's like, oh, hey, that was my bill.
Yeah.
And, it made it all the way through. And it's good to know that it was, it worked out. But yeah, you just can't worry about the credit,
No.
There was a bunch of bills that got out of appropriations. There was a lot of the AI bills for regulating AI. I know you and I were at a conference
Right.
recently talking about that. Josh Lowenthal's bill to, in fact, this is all these assembly bills, I assume, are coming to your floor now, right? Josh Lowenthal's bill to essentially hold social media companies accountable for harms caused by social media, which is a really, really interesting bill. Gotten a lot of opposition. I actually supported a pretty early version of it in the assembly, and now it's gotten amended quite a bit since then, I think, to make it a little better. But or a little more palatable, I should say.
Well,
Not better is
it's
probably the
but
wrong
some of
word.
the stuff I don't think we should make it palatable, because social
Yeah,
media is destroying our young people
yeah,
and tearing the country apart. And
yeah.
they absolutely know what they're doing, and they're doing it for a profit. So back in
Yeah.
2019, in fact, November 14th, 2019, um, I was out of session, so I'm working on losing weight, and I was hiking like 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And I come in about 7:30 in the morning, and the TV's on, and I'm looking. It's an aerial view down. I'm going, man, that looks like my neighborhood. And it was my neighborhood, because there was a shooting at the high school at the
Wow.
down at the bottom of the hill,
Yeah.
and it was. And I knew a lot of people involved. One of the girls that was wounded, friend of ours, the first person on the scene to try to stop the shooter was a friend of mine who's a
Wow.
LA County detective. Anyway, so that goes through 2 students. Well, actually, 3 died because he killed 2 and he took his own life. 2 wounded, and then schools were closed for like a week, and then everybody came back. And one of the junior highs that feed into that, they talk about it obviously with the teachers, and teachers goes, well, if you have policy ideas, here's your assembly person, here's your senator, write them and give them ideas. So anyway, had some stuff come in, really interesting, not reactive at all. And then one came in, I'm in committee, and Steph comes in and hands it to me, and it's a girl who was friends with the shooter and very depressed, and she says, I'm thinking about taking my own life. Then they go, what do you want to do with that? I go, well, we can't sit here. So I called the superintendent. Anyway, we got her help. And then a few days later, I got a call from the teacher saying, thank you so much. She was not even on my radar screen.
Wow. Wow.
And he said, would you like to come and talk to the students? I said, no, but I'll come and listen.
Yeah.
And they actually put a bunch of classes together. And it was a very depressing morning.
Oh my
What
gosh.
these
Can
kids
imagine.
go through that I never had to go
Nope.
through.
Nope.
And the social media thing, between the bullying
Yeah.
and then giving them bad content that puts bad thoughts in their minds.
It really takes what you deal with in high school and middle school to a degree, and it just puts it on steroids. I mean, all the
amps it.
worst stuff, right? All the worst stuff, the bullying, the just the unkindness, and on top of that, you get introduced to things you probably shouldn't be introduced
Exactly.
to, right? There's been a lot of fentanyl being dealt on social media. There's a lot of actual physical risks as well, right? Not just mental. And it's pretty scary. So this bill looks like it's going to make it to your floor in its amended form. So it'll be interesting. I'm interested to see how that gets received. I know that it's hit some bumps through the process, but it has made it all the way through so far.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you ever saw the movie Brexit.
I haven't watched it.
Yeah,
No.
so it was produced by BBC.
Okay.
You can see it on HBO Demand, and it was about the Brexit campaign and how the pro-Brexit people use social media and algorithms to identify and turn out 3 million voters that they didn't know that was coming. And there's one scene when the consultant's talking to the algorithm guy, and he's like saying, Facebook knows when you're going to get a divorce before you know you're going to get a divorce, because they have so much data that they can
sense predictability or whatever.
Predictability, yeah. So it's
That's
pretty
crazy.
it's pretty scary.
That is pretty scary. It's funny. I'm pretty strict on the social media in my house, so we have a lot of phone rules, and we've got no social media rules and stuff. But my daughter was talking to my wife the other day, and she said something kind of off the cuff about how social media is going to be the downfall of her generation.
I agree.
Which my wife kind of stopped and was like, wait, first of all, you're probably right, but where did that even come from? But yeah, no, I actually agree with her as well. I think that It's just from the impact that it's going to have on everyone's brain and their relationships and their development.
Or their development.
Their
I
development.
mean, no soft skills. I did. I think it was maybe. I don't think it was last year. I think it was the year before. Senator Ben Allen, Democrat, and myself.
Yeah.
We did this salon with college students that was sponsored by Frank Luntz and CNN.
Oh, okay.
I never was on TV, but it was like really depressing because Ben and I are both old enough that we remember, Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill. Yeah, we fight till 5.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a drink and these kids have, because they're all in college, have grown up with nothing but polarization and social media. And yeah, I don't know how we extricate ourselves from this, but I have major concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a collective action sort of thing to a degree. I mean, on the one hand, you're going to have legislators or legislatures that take action in some way, shape, or form. One of actually the bills that got out of suspense for me, which I was super excited about, and I think you're a co-author of it, is our bill to limit smartphone use in schools.
Yeah, I'm a co-author.
Yeah, so that's going to be headed your way as well. To your floor, and the governor seems to have endorsed it, which is a good sign for the bill. But I just think the momentum really seems to be there for that, and I'm really thankful for that because I think anything we can do when these kids are in a public school or any school, right, to kind of limit those damages, in the time that we can, and then it's going to take action on the part of parents and communities to say, hey, like. And churches or whatever, wherever these kids are, to say, hey, these are our rules, and we're not gonna overwhelm everyone's brain with all this stuff.
Look, if you look at the data,
yeah,
no phones enhances educational learning. I actually flirted with introducing that bill, but again, being termed out, I was a little concerned about me being at the end. So when you reached out, I'm gonna go, yeah, absolutely, hop on that,
awesome.
and then
Well, it's funny because some of the biggest concerns came from my caucus on that bill, right? Because local control, and I'm very sensitive to local control as well, and I crafted it in a way where there's a lot of local control built in. But the reality is that if kids are being harmed by these phones, and it's funny because if you read some of the research, pre-2010. These other phones, some kids, like I had a phone in high school, it was like a Nokia, right, or whatever, but it was just like you could play Snake and you could text really weirdly, and you could like make some calls, right, and that was it, and it really didn't have a really negative impact on anything because it was essentially just a communication device, right?
Yeah.
But post 2010, when those rates of iPhones and everything else went up. You definitely started seeing those things change.
So we recently bought a new house and we're moving boxes, and my wife goes, "You're really moving your BlackBerry to the next house?" I go, "Yeah, I guess we can throw that away."
I don't know. That's like history.
Oh no,
man.
I know. I'm thinking maybe I should hold on to it.
Yeah,
maybe, yeah. So I don't know.
Take it to a museum.
Yeah, so
I've got a museum in Folsom that has a bunch of old phones and stuff. It's hilarious to look at. You're like, holy cow!
I said I was going to throw it out, but I didn't.
There you go. Hey, see, I have trouble doing that too. I've got a garage full of old computers and old technology, because someday I'm gonna be like, well, remember this is crazy, this was the hot thing at the moment. That I used to,
when I retire, I'm looking forward to buying a stereo. Because I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of albums, so I want to reacquaint myself with
so
them.
Like when you say albums, you mean like records?
Or
records. CDs?
Yeah, record albums.
Okay, like that's pretty cool. Yeah, a lot of my dad and my father-in-law both have just sold off like their whole collections, which I think now is kind of sad because they're coming back into to vogue, and so it's almost like, man, should have kept those. My wife's been trying to get me to get rid of my CDs for a long time, and I'm still
my wife too.
I'm still hanging on to them.
Me too. I like something that's tangible.
Yeah.
And the thing with this whole download is like, just when I would put an album on, I'd put the needle down and I would let it play all the way through. Now it's like that's. Yeah. I think it contributes to our ADD as a society.
So don't judge me too hard, but new album came out, Eminem's new album.
Okay.
The Death of Slim Shady, And I only bring this up because, well, it's a great album. But I also bring it up because he tweeted the day before the release, because it released on Spotify and all these other things, right? But he like tweeted or he posted something about this album was written as an album. It was not written to be shuffled. It was not written to be added to playlists. And I had major respect for that because I'm like, artists don't really do that. In fact, now they actually just release like singles, and then they release an album, after the fact. But it's like the album experience has kind of been lost. So it was pretty cool to see there was an artist.
No,
out there
I do. I remember the magic of it. So I just remember the first time I heard "Born to Run" on the radio.
Yeah.
And so I was going to work. So right after work, I went to the record store and I bought "Born to Run" and took it home, put it on. The first song is "Thunder Road," which is an awesome song. And I'm just getting tingling, thinking about it. And people don't experience that because it's like, download.
I mean, this is another thing. I feel like this podcast is becoming the kids these days podcast, but my son, the way he listens to music, completely different than how I listen to music. Yeah. I mean, this kid, and he loves music, so that's great. But he's just got hundreds and hundreds of songs on his playlists that, like, I never came close to having that much music, available, accessible, right? And he listens to like half a song and then he skips to the next one, then half a song.
That's what I'm talking about. We're turning everybody into ADD.
Going on? Like, do you not want to listen to all the music? Like, what's going on?
So I had fun this weekend because I'm cleaning out my apartment up here and I'm doing all that. And I found my old iPod.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That I have not seen. And this got all kinds of music on there.
That's cool.
When I'm cleaning my apartment this weekend, I put that on because I got a little stereo to amplify it. It was awesome. So I'm taking that.
That's pretty
me.
awesome.
Yeah.
I still remember when the iPod came out.
I should have bought Apple then.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. My dad actually started working for Apple in 2001, the year the iPod came out, and he always jokes about that. How like, as soon as I joined Apple, their stock really started going up. It's like, I'm sure there were other factors involved, but. So another story here we actually already talked about smartphones. I was going to mention the governor actually wrote a letter to school districts last week on that topic. And he said that, basically encouraged all of them to take their own action even prior to legislative kind of, mandating it or whatever. So the governor's been actually pretty outspoken about this. So we're hopeful
for 2 weeks, but okay.
I'll give you that for 2 weeks. It was kind of funny. So just kind of a funny story. And if the governor, if for some reason you're listening, because he's got his own podcast now, so he's probably not listening to this podcast, right? But if he is listening, we'd love for you to sign the bill and really appreciate your support. But it was funny because he had been doing all this messaging on smartphones, right? So my office had reached out and connected with his staff and said, hey, here's our bill. It's right along what the governor's talking about. Would love to work with you, whatever. And we got like a 1-sentence response, like, cool, sounds good. We'll let you know. I'm like, okay, great. But then I'm like running into some of my Democratic colleagues in the assembly. And one of them's asking me like, hey, so is the governor working with you on the bill? Because he's not working with us on the bill. And I'm like, I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, we've talked to him very briefly about it, but like we don't really know what's going on, and it just seems like there's just like a major disconnect here, right? And I think this has kind of been a theme for the governor, obviously.
Right. I mean, I've had the pleasure. I've worked with 2 governors.
Yeah.
And Jerry Brown very much was interested in governing. He did spend. I mean, I'm sure he didn't care about us, but he spent time with us, and I was on a couple working groups with him on the water bond and on the film tax credit. We were more relevant in the Senate when I first started because we had more seats, and I had 2 one-on-ones with him because he was looking for votes. This governor, I don't know, man. I just don't think he's interested in governing.
Interesting.
I think he's interested in being a celebrity, hence the new photographer.
Oh, the photographer. All right. Well, I'm going to get to the photographer in just a second. There's this this homeless activist coalition is starting to complain that authorities are now cracking down harder on encampments in light of obviously the grants pass decision in the Supreme Court, plus another issue Governor Newsom has been pretty outspoken about. In fact, he was cleaning up an encampment a week or 2 ago. I just didn't know if you had any take on that. We don't have to stay on this very long, but I think seems to be happening, which I've actually been grateful to see. My local governments have felt much more empowered in the last few weeks to really address, especially for the people that refuse the help. I think that's always the biggest challenge.
And that's why I think we need to pass Proposition 36 in November. I'm a little bit more jaded than you because we've spent all this money and it's gotten worse. And I think we know what we need to do, but we don't do it. And let's be honest, a lot of these NGOs and nonprofits that receive state funds to do these things, they're allies of the ruling party.
Sure.
And I'm not sure everybody's really committed to doing what it takes to really help solving the problem. I mean, we had a situation where we passed Measure H, raising taxes in LA County.
Yeah.
Again, for homelessness. And two of my nonprofits in my district, guess what they did with their money? They gave their CEOs big pay increases. That's not
what you want to see.
Not what you want to see.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, it is kind of an interesting concept at one point, right? It's like you have people making money off of solving homelessness. Is that an incentive to solve homelessness? I don't know. So yeah, definitely something to think about. But to your point about the photographer, I just threw this in there because I thought it was just kind of shocking to me, actually. But the governor, it appears, has hired a photographer, according to reports. This is in Politico, I guess, broke the story. On state resources, director of photography, I think is the title. I didn't know that was a state position.
It is now.
And making like $200,000 a year to take photos. I mean, I'm sure there's other responsibilities, but that's seems to be a main part of it. And he's been a photographer for a bunch of other famous politicians over the years. But that's wild, man. I mean,
particularly when we have a budget deficit. I understand you want to document certain things. I mean, both the Assembly and the Senate, we have official photographers.
Sure.
But
yeah, collectively.
Yeah, but 200,000 seems a little excessive.
I mean,
like if I had to hire a photographer, I'd probably want somebody for 200,000 to make me look good, but he already looks good. He's got the jaw, he's got the hair. I mean, he doesn't really need a $200,000 photographer, in my opinion.
That's actually very complimentary. That's a nice way to
that was true. I mean, I've taken photos with him. I never post him like going. I post photos with Brown because I'm taller than him. I got more hair than him. I'm younger than him. I got photos. They're on my phone, but I never post them. Like, I'm not posting that.
I'm not standing next to Gavin and posting it. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty funny. Well, yeah, I mean, this photographer has photographed Mark Zuckerberg, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, so probably can charge a lot of money, but it's like, you'd think you'd be able to find someone a little less than that.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, we both have staff. We both try to compensate our staff. That's obviously, an important part of the role is having staff. You couldn't do this job without your staff, right? But yeah, that seems a little excessive. So,
fun fact: I was George W. Bush's stand-in at the Republican convention in 2000.
Really?
Yeah, I happened to be the same height as him, and my friend was the producer of the convention. So I got minimum wage, was like I think $10 an hour, but I had an all access pass. Wow. And I got to be in the green room most of the time. When Cheney was there and Bush, I couldn't be, but otherwise I was around. And the thing that was really interesting is that they hired BET, Black Entertainment Television, to produce it. So I was getting paid by BET. So when you do those stupid games like, tell me two truths and two lies.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I used to work for BET. And like
that is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy how that happened.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. That's pretty neat. That's it. That's a good nugget. Thanks for sharing that one. Last story. And then, so it's kind of connected. I actually added, after I texted you on Friday, a clip of the week of our governor actually talking about Prop 36, but that I'll play in a second. But before we do, to set that up, a lot of bipartisan support growing for Prop 36. I know you just mentioned Prop 36, but I was hopefully this opens on my iPad here, but we got a lot of these lawmakers signing on. Josh Newman, Melissa Hurtado, these are some of your colleagues, Susan Rubio, Tom Umberg, Blanca Pacheco in my house, Jasmine Baines, James Ramos, and Stephanie Wynn have all signed on and endorsed Prop 36. Even Dave Min in the Senate,
Wow.
who's obviously running for Congress, there may be some other reasons there, but has endorsed it. And so, not to mention, a coalition actually in one of the folks, my DA in my district, Sac County, Tin Ho, just came out a few days ago, along with Bobby Singh, who's the mayor of Elk Grove, and Matt Mahan, who's the mayor of San Jose, and they launched a whole new support initiative for this. Three very, I think, reasonable Democrats, in their roles. Pretty good news, right? I mean, this is huge.
Well, I don't think it's a surprise to you, but when I go home, I tell people we have three political parties in Sacramento. We got the Republicans, we got the Democrats, and we got the progressives.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the progressives are in charge.
They are.
And we need to figure out a way to make that not happen. But I'm not really. I mean, those are just common sense solutions. Now, I wish my DA was in support, but it's George Gascon, and definitely not. But the LA Times just came out with a poll.
I was just going to mention the poll.
And
and
he's down 45 to 20.
45 to 20.
Yeah.
I mean, when are these guys going to realize this doesn't work with voters? I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah.
So, probably not going to get Gascon there.
No.
But I say all that, so I say that to kind of set up this clip. So we usually play a little clip of the week. So I'm going to play this clip of the governor. I don't know if you heard it over the, I think it was when he signed the organized retail theft bills. He did a little press conference, right?
I did not watch it.
You didn't watch it?
No.
Okay, then I'm excited because then you'll have a honest.
I'm going to have a first take.
First time reaction to it. But he's signing, the context is he's signed these organized retail theft bills, but I support it.
I did too.
I imagine you supported. Again, I keep saying this. They weren't bad bills.
Right.
I don't think they go far enough.
Correct.
I think they're going to be very limited in how DAs can use them to actually prosecute. So I think that's why I think we also need Prop 36. But I do think it's complementary, right? But a reporter asked them about Prop 36 in this moment, and this is what he said.
So I want to ask about that ballot measure. In light of being in San Jose, the mayor of the city this week announced his support for Prop 36. And he said that Prop 36, he was focusing on the idea of mass treatment as opposed to mass incarceration. And so I want to talk about that. He said Prop 36 and Prop 1, in fact, perfectly align with each other. And that some people who are sentenced to the mandated treatment under Prop 36 would be housed in some Prop 1 funded facilities. So my question for you is, what do you have to say about the fact that Prop 36, if passed, could potentially work in tandem with Prop 1? Is that something that you can acknowledge or comment on?
Well, I can't acknowledge something that is misleading at best, factually wrong, as the author of Prop 1. As someone intimately familiar with Proposition 36, Prop 36 takes us back to the 1980s, the war on drugs, mass incarceration. It promotes a promise that can't be delivered. I would ask those that support it, particularly mayors, where are the treatment slots? Where are the beds? There are 22 counties. 22 counties in the state of California. This is not a local initiative, Prop 36. It's a statewide initiative. 22 counties don't have one residential treatment facility. 22 counties don't have one. I mean, they're lying to you. They're lying to you. That initiative has nothing to do with retail theft. This has everything to do with retail theft. That initiative is about going back to the 1980s and the war on drugs. It's about mass incarceration. And don't take my word for it. Look at the independent legislative analysts who said it will cost billions and billions of dollars. Not $1 is attached to Prop 36, not one. Any of you that are fiscally conservative, you should be screaming from the rafters.
Yeah, I mean, okay, just stark contrast, okay, from all these all this bipartisan support's popping up for Prop 36, and then the governor comes out and says this. It's like, what's going on here? Like, what's?
Yeah, you can see he was not happy, huh?
He was not happy.
Yeah.
In fact, if you're listening to this, maybe check out the YouTube, because just watching his face while she's asking the question, he is not happy. It's almost like he's like plotting how to destroy the careers of these mayors that have endorsed this initiative or something.
Hey, look, it's going to cost money, but we've had a great cost to
Yeah.
our society based upon everything,
Yep.
between the opioid epidemic and then, not being incarcerated or being forced into drug rehab. It's just, it's insane. I have one Walmart in my district where they just have two county sheriffs posted outside, and they just write tickets to these people and then they leave because they're all
Unbelievable.
stealing stuff to pay
Yeah.
for their drug habit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, here's the reality. It costs money to hold people accountable.
Right.
And I certainly don't, if anyone that's read Prop 36, I mean, if anything's misleading, I would say that some of those comments were. Most of it gives you multiple chances. Most of Prop 36, which is the undoing of some parts of Prop 47 from 10 years ago. But a lot of it is, you still get a couple chances before it really kicks in. So this idea that it's somehow taking us back to the 1980s is just absolute. That is misleading.
Okay. Well, I grew up in the 1980s and they were pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. The 80s. Yeah. What's wrong with the 80s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, the strong, it's interesting that he used the 1980s because it was the 90s when they did the three strikes law.
Correct. Yeah.
And Joe Biden was talking about these super
remember
predator criminals. That was not in the 80s, it was the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm
was
happy
the
to go
90s.
back to the 80s. Music was pretty good then too.
I love it. I like the music in the 90s too, but that was more, but yeah, it's just, I just think it's interesting to me, that you've got so many people in his party that are embracing Prop 36 and he's still vehemently opposed. Right. And you got some head nods from folks in the back, but that press conference was pretty awkward because, there was some law enforcement there. The California retailers were there. Then they've been kind of interestingly involved on Prop 36 in different ways.
I am not even commenting on the retailers.
I know. And then you had some Republican lawmakers there. And so there's certainly people in that press conference that support Prop 36.
Yeah.
And so it made for a pretty awkward moment, I think. But I think the governor's wrong on that one. I think, and if you look at the polling, the bipartisan support from independents, from everybody, the Prop 36 appears like it's what the people of California want. So,
well, thanks for sharing that.
Hey, with that, any final thoughts before I let you go? Because I know we got to get you out of here.
Well, I hope we continue to cross paths in the future.
Yeah.
Not sure what I'm doing next. Kind of have an idea, and I will not be interfacing with the legislature, but I'll be up here probably 2-3 times a year.
Oh, that's
doing
awesome.
other stuff. So hopefully,
well, yeah, let me know.
And I'm continue to follow your career.
Appreciate
the other
it.
thing I really appreciate is you've really been a leader in the Problem Solver Caucus.
Yep.
Which is bicameral, bipartisan, trying to get solutions that benefit all Californians. And at some point, I'm sure you're gonna be one of the co-chairs of that. And I think because of the numbers, the way that they are in the legislature, really, I think this is really like the only pathway forward in terms of coming up with bipartisan solutions.
Yep.
I think the rules are written so Republicans can't win. So unless there's a revolution, I don't really see us picking up a lot of seats in the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And so reaching across the aisle and working with others really is the only thing that gives me hope.
Well, and we're going to really miss you in the Problem Solvers Caucus because, we're already pretty small. But, I'm really hoping there's going to be some willingness from some of the new members to join, and let's keep growing it and keep growing that kind of bipartisan commitment. I think is really important.
Yep, I agree.
And to keep, in the absence of more balance, actual balance in the legislature, I think it helps provide some type of balance, right? By just having those bipartisan relationships and conversations. Because, it's been actually really great to see it throughout our time in the Problem Solvers Caucus, all the conversations we're having where on the policy this legislature's passed that is like, well, that was not good, and there's a lot of agreement on how it went too far.
Well, you and I came in, even though I was a vice chair, you and I came in, co-chair, you and I came in at the same time because I had been Republican Senate leader. And under the bylaws, as you know, you can't be in party leadership and be a member of the caucus.
Right.
And I remember our first meeting, in fact, I think it was in this in this building, I was shocked by how honest and open people were. That gave me real encouragement about what they really thought.
Yeah.
And another thing is you learn the issues that are in your committee.
Yep.
But there's many more pieces of legislation that hits the floor and leaves. So, you read an analysis or whatever, and then that's it. And we've really been able to drill down in a lot of these policy areas and be educated. So even though we may not have come out with, problem solvers, policy position, we're better educated and I think better prepared to represent our constituents. So I think that's a plus too.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, on that note, we'll close it off. If you want to share ideas for future shows, you can email pointoforderpod@gmail.com. Listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You can watch, subscribe, or follow on YouTube, X, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook @PointOfOrderPod. And you can follow today's hosts on X, myself @Joshua_Hoover. And then I'm sure you're going to have a lot of tweets in the future @Scott Wilk CA.
Yeah, I'm gonna do I'm gonna do lifestyle stuff.
Yeah, lifestyle. See,
yeah.
We're gonna follow Scott's vlog or whatever he starts. I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited to see what comes next. But hey, Scott, I really appreciate you coming on today. I'm really glad we got to do this before you take off, and we'll hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh.
See you later.